Once when the world was young. There lived two sisters. The eldest was known as Helena, and she was haughty, selfish, and proud. The youngest was called Marushka, and she was kind, generous, and thoughtful. They lived with their mother in a little village near a forest, and which was also near a mountain, and which some said was not so very far from the end of the world. Their mother greatly favored Helena because she was the older daughter, and because she reminded the mother so much of herself. But both mother and sister were jealous of and cruel towards Marushka, who was greatly liked and favored. They made Marushka do all the chores, cleaning the house, milking the cow, and baking the bread. But Marushka never complained, and indeed seemed quite happy, which only made Helena and her mother angrier. Soon their mother worried that Marushka would find a match before Helena, and so they plotted to get rid of the girl. One day, deep in the winter, Helena sighed deeply. Marushka asked what was the matter, and Helena said that she longed for the scent of spring violets. At first Marushka tried to reason with her that violets could not grow through the January snow. But both Helena and her mother drove Marushka from the house, saying that if she did not return with violets, they would beat her black and blue. Marushka went deep into the forest, and high up in the mountain, and the wind blew cold, and the snow came down. She feared she might freeze, when suddenly she saw a little flicker of fire through the trees. She approached and found a fire around which sat 12 stones with 12 strange people upon them. 3 were very old, with big white beards. 3 were somewhat younger looking, with small beards upon their faces. 3 were younger still, with only the mustaches of youth. And the last 3 were barefaced, and barely more than children. Marushka quickly knew that she had found the 12 months, and recognized Elder January sitting upon the high seat by the fire. Timidly, she approached and begged that she might warm herself by their fire, lest she freeze to death. They welcomed her, and old January asked why she was out wandering in the mountains alone. She said she had been tasked to bring back violets by her sister and mother. January frowned and reminded her that violets did not bloom in the winter. Marushka burst into tears and explained that if she brought back no violets, she would be beaten. Old January thought, and then turned to one of the youngest-looking months, telling him, "Brother March, come and sit upon the high seat a moment." Young March did so, and waved his staff over the fire, and flowers of all types began to bloom around them. Marushka gasped with delight, and then saw a large patch of violets, which she gathered quickly in her apron. She thanked the months and hurried back down the mountain to home. Her family was astounded to see her return at all, much less with violets, but when they asked where she had got them, she simply said that she had found a patch high up in the mountains. Soon Helena and her mother plotted again, and Helena sighed that she could be only happy with the scent of roses to comfort her. Again Marushka tried to explain that roses did not grow in snow, but she was once more driven from the house and told she must bring back roses or be beaten black and blue. Again Marushka wandered into the mountains, and found herself at the edge of the glade where sat the 12 months. She again begged their leave to warm herself by their fire, and they welcomed her. January asked why she had returned, and once more Marushka burst into tears and explained that she must bring roses or be beaten. January scowled but said, "Brother June, come and take the high seat." June did so, and waved his staff over the fire, and the snow melted away and a warm sun shone down upon them all. Birds sang and bees buzzed, and a beautiful rose bush sprang up. Marushka gathered as many roses as she could and thanked the months, then headed back down the mountain. Once more her family was astonished to see her return, and even more astonished when she tumbled out an apron full of roses at their feet. When pressed, she said only that she had found a rose bush growing high on the mountain. A few days more, and Mother and Helena began plotting again. This time Helena groaned that she must have fresh apples right from the tree, and, despite Marushka's protests, she was again driven out to find apples or be beaten for her failure. Again Marushka wandered into the mountains and found herself at the edge of the glade where sat the 12 months. And again she begged their leave to warm herself by their fire, and they welcomed her. January asked once more why she had come back, and Marushka, sobbing, explained about the apples. January thought and nodded, and invited September to take the high seat. When September waved his staff over the fire, the leaves began to change to golds and reds, and the winter faded to a crisp autumn breeze, and a beautiful apple tree sprang up. January told Marushka to take only 2 apples from this tree, which she did dutifully, and thanked the 12 months as she headed down the mountain. This time her family was not so surprised to see her return, but they were surprised to find that she had but 2 apples for them, which Helena and her mother greedily devoured. The apples were so good, however, that they craved them more, and accused Marushka of having eaten the rest on her way down the mountain. Marushka insisted she had only been allowed to take 2 apples, but more grew upon a beautiful tree at the top of the mountain. And so Helena and her mother rushed out the door and headed into the forest and up the mountain to find the tree. They soon found the glade of the 12 months, but without so much a please or a thank you, they ran up to the fire and began warming themselves. January crossly asked who they were and what they were doing here, but they haughtily replied that they did not need to answer to old men who lived in the mountains, for they were proper ladies. Helena and her mother knew that these men must have given Marushka the apples, and so they demanded that the months show them the apple tree as well, and threatened to beat them if they did not. January, who sat on the high seat now, grew dark with anger, and shook his staff over the fire, and the wind grew colder, and the snow fell harder, and ice began to form around the 2 women. Soon they were frozen solid there on the mountain, high in the forest, far from home. Marushka kept watch and waited for many days, but as winter turned to spring, she knew they would not be coming back. Still, she did the cleaning, and milked the cow, and baked the bread, and was as happy as she could be, and she lived out her days as such, thankful for what she had, and so her seasons were filled with gratitude and peace until the very end. The end.